Welcome to A Simple Life. Today we got old mowers, piles of compost, all kinds of stuff we're going to be doing. So we just brought up the boys' next little project that they can work on. They actually already started working on it down at our place, and I said no, this is not going to be parked in front of our house. You can take it up to Herman's. You work on it up at Herman's. Clint did get it to turn over, so it needs probably a little bit of work. Most likely it doesn't need a heck of a lot. Oil change, filter changes, probably that's about it. We'll see, maybe a starter or something like that. Who knows? But they'll have a blast figuring it out because I'm not helping them. They got to do it themselves. What's the next thing we're going to be working on? Well, we are going to be bringing up a bunch of horse manure. This is our horse manure compost we brought up a few months ago. That is weeks old, a month old, about 2 months old, 3 to 5 months old, and about 6 to 9 months old. It looks very similar now. There is a few things in here that, there's some onions and stuff like that that were on the front end that when I mixed everything over, they got mixed in, but they really weren't part of the compost. They were just sitting on top of the compost. They will get broken down very quickly. I'm not worried about that at all. And the reason why I know they're gonna get broken down very quickly is once I bring up all this extra compost that I have down at our place, we're gonna cover, we're actually gonna leave, tomorrow we're gonna leave this exposed because we're gonna get a lot of rain. Then I'm gonna cover it and let that rain and all that oxygen and everything kind of bake, and then I'll expose it on the next couple sunny days that we have. The reason I kind of do that is I cover it and expose it and cover it and expose it. I found that if I leave the compost exposed all winter long, it gets way too wet. We get like 40 some inches of rain here. So it gets way too wet and it'll just be muddy. It won't break down the way it needs to. And in the summer, it's so dry that if I leave it exposed, it'll completely dry out and there'll be no moisture and it won't continue the process. So I kind of go back and forth between covering it and exposing it and turning it over. And while that's probably not the most ideal way to do it, it's the only way I found to actually get a really good, consistent breakdown of the material. There's going to be another pile that we're going to be starting. It's going to be only for wood chips. And the reason it's only going to be for wood chips is because we have a lot of country roads around here, and with those country roads comes Asplin maintaining them, and they have no one that really wants the wood chips around here. So we can get sometimes we can get 3 loads a week. When it's the right season and all the stars align, we can get quite a few loads in a week. So we are going to be starting another pile, probably like right where the excavator is, or maybe a little farther down, and that's going to be specifically for wood chips. So I can start making some of my own kind of chunkier mulch. So we'll have compost, I'm going to say a chunkier compost. It's not really a fine compost because of the fact that there's so many wood shavings from the horse manure in here, and there's some hay bits, but that's something we're going to work out in the future. Maybe try building a screener or something like that. But then we're going to have the actual wood chips, and those will be in their own pile, and they do compost down, and they actually compost down pretty nicely, but they don't quite get like this. It takes a really long time for them to get really small. I find they're really great for when you're trying to choke out material, to choke out grasses or weeds or something like that. You can put that thicker stuff over it, and it does a good job of choking that out. So we'll try some of that. We've done that down at our place, and if you're consistent with it, and you just every spring, every fall, you put some on there, over the course of a couple years, you really choke out all the weeds in that area. We've had really good luck. I shouldn't say we, Christine has. I've done the moving of the chips, but she's done the landscaping bit, and we found that it's worked out really well. So right now I'm gonna go pick up probably 4 or 5 loads with the dump truck of horse manure. I'll bring it up, we'll put it here, and we'll start composting it. And this horse manure and wood shavings and hay mixture, there's actually some goat manure in there too, that'll all get broken down, and over the course of the next year we'll end up with more compost for our greenhouses. And this is just the beginning of me trying to be as self-sufficient as possible when it comes to growing things and not relying on going to Home Depot or the local garden supply or the local compost place or wherever it is to get material to grow. So while we will need to add amendments to this, we are going to have to adjust for each kind of plant that we're growing. For example, the potatoes, we saw that the potatoes were a little too leafy and didn't quite have enough potato growth. So we'll adjust that going forward by adding some wood ash. Somebody put it in the comments, wood ash was a great thing. I looked it up, I was like, oh, this will be perfect. We have plenty of wood ash because we do our own burn piles. We have fireplaces, Herman has one and so do we. So we'll have plenty of wood ash to add for our potatoes. Each plant is probably gonna need slightly different amendments depending on what we're growing, where we're growing it, and some may thrive in this compost, but we're not gonna know until we try that. So going forward, we're just gonna keep trying things and we'll adjust as we go. And it's one of those things I think is important is to kind of experiment with what you have. I'm gonna figure out some of the stuff myself and then I can pass it on to my boys, well, and hopefully pass it on to you. So we'll go from there. I don't have any little helpers here right now, so I'm gonna have to do it myself. Clay went home to help Christine and Clint's around here somewhere doing something. He'll show up right when I'm done, I guarantee it. I don't know exactly how much material I'm actually dumping. It's probably about 5 yards, but it's not very heavy and it's also not very composted down. So if I was to pile this all up, it would shrink drastically over the next few months. But there's also a lot of heat in here still, so some rain is gonna help this all kind of speed up because it's also dry. So we have a lot of heat and a lot of dry. So all right, let's get this dumped the rest of the way. So I think there's about one more load like this, and then there's a load of really well composted stuff. I've been leaving it down there for our gardens down there, but we've changed kind of plans down there. I'm gonna be putting in some garden boxes for Christine. And so when I do that, what I'll probably do is fill it with a mix of good topsoil and compost. And stuff down there is just basically straight compost. It's very well composted down. I want a little bit better of a balance for her, so I'll probably mix up something a little better for those. We're gonna go get at least one more load before it gets dark, and then possibly we'll see about a 4th load. But I want to show you the difference between the new stuff that I just brought up. You can see how chunky it is. You can see it's actually very warm. And the older stuff that is probably 6 months old or so. And it's actually very, very cool. I want to actually prove this point. You know, it's great when you're working and you got a kid that can actually drive something. Okay, I know. Farm boys, right? Farm kids. But hey, it's great. It's a real blessing. All right, so I'm gonna get my compost thermostat and we are going to check to see the temperature of the compost. We can check the new stuff versus the old stuff. Okay, so this is the oldest stuff right here. So let's see what this is gonna register as. Now we're 2 feet deep in this, so there may be some heat in there, but I would be surprised if we break 100 degrees. I don't think we're gonna break, I mean, we barely broke 80. That's basically the temperature today was about 80. So, I mean, it's not going anywhere. Okay, so that's the oldest stuff. So that means it's done. We're done. Okay, let's go over here. We'll check this stuff right here. This is slightly newer. And once again, you can see, actually, look, we're getting some activity. But it's nothing like that, and that end's basically done. You can just tell. And look, we'll be lucky if we break, what, 110? I don't think we'll break 110. All right, so we just broke 110. So we're just barely breaking 110. And this stuff is much newer. Now let's try this pile that I just put together. Like this pile, we just dumped this. So the fact that this is already building up heat again after being stirred, basically like 2 to 3 times a day, that's how active this stuff is. This stuff is gonna be way warmer. We'll probably break 120, get right around 120. I'd be maybe. But overall, you can see from ambient to just a little bit warmer to this stuff is actually putting off heat. You can feel it, and I'm surprised we're not getting higher, but it's probably because I just stirred this twice, 3-4 times today. But that being said, I bet you come back tomorrow and I bet you this is much warmer tomorrow. Ooh, that's a heavy load. You can hear that. So it's gonna be raining for the next 4 days. So what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna cover this tonight. Like I was saying earlier, I'm gonna let it get rained on for 1 day. So tomorrow we'll come up and we'll cover it after that. And the main reason is a lot of this stuff is pretty dry. It's not very moist. And once I cover it, it's really gonna get hot in there. And so you can see some of this has some good dark color to it, but it really needs to bake a lot more. The other thing is I don't want any grass seed or anything like that in there. And so I want this really well baked off. Hey! Back up. Pull forward. Drop the bed. Good. Load, we have one more, maybe 2 more loads. We'll probably have to wait until after this rain and bring those up, probably in a couple weeks once it dries out a little bit more. The good part is we have gravel on the road. We just put all this gravel down the road, almost 200 tons. Yeah, almost 200 tons of gravel on the road. So yeah, a bit. But we really needed it. It hasn't had gravel on it probably in 15 years, and the spot that I redid definitely needed it. It was bad. Last year we had like 10-inch deep ruts. The great part is the red truck has no problem with that. The bad part is I can only drive the red truck up here because of 4-wheel drive. So this year we won't have that problem. We're gonna have plenty of traction. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today on A Simple Life. Thanks, Clint, for all your help.
Yeah.
And you have dirt on your face, but it's okay.
Yay.
Farm boys.